नमस्कार। नासाको यो मे महिनाको टक सेसन जुन हामीले एभ्री मन्थ गर्दै आएका थियौँ, आजको यो टक सेसनमा पाल्नुहुने सम्पूर्ण महानुभाव लगायत हाम्रो आजको गेस्ट स्पिकर CPA कुमार भण्डारीजीलाई यस प्रोग्राममा स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु र साथसाथै सम्पूर्ण पार्टिसिपेट हुनुहुने साथीहरूलाई पनि म मेरो नमस्कार भन्न चाहन्छु। र आजको प्रोग्रामको टपिक रहेको छ जुन हामीले अहिले जुन सबैजना हामी एउटा कोभिड-19 को समस्यामा जुन क्राइसिसमा पेन्डेमिक क्राइसिसमा जुन दिन बिताइरहेका छौँ, यसैसँग सम्बन्धित रहेर त्यसमा पनि हामीले स्पेसल्ली फाइनेन्सियल रूपमा चाहिँ स्मल बिजनेस ओनरहरू लगायत हामी जो इन्डिभिजुअल जुन पेचेक टु पेचेकमा रहिरहेको व्यक्तिहरू, स्टुडेन्टहरू र अरू पनि विविध आवरली वर्कर साथीहरू लगायत विभिन्न पेसामा विभिन्न आफ्नो स्ट्याटसमा रहनुभएको साथीहरूलाई सबैलाई यो किसिमले केही न केही वेमा चाहिँ यसले प्रभाव पारिरहेको छ र यसलाई एड्रेस गर्दै हामीले यो चाहिँ अलिकति कम्युनिटीको लागि यो बेनिफिट हुन्छ भन्ने उद्देश्यका साथ यो टपिकलाई आज हामीले जुन यो SPA पेचेक प्रोटेक्सन प्रोग्राम त्यस्तै गरेर स्टेट अनइम्प्लोइमेन्ट क्लेम कसरी गर्ने र त्यस्तै गरेर अरू इन्डिभिजुअल जुन हामीलाई व्यक्तिहरूलाई परिरहेको जुन समस्याहरूको बारेमा या मतलब यसको विषयमा कस्तो खालको उहरू छ यस सम्बन्धी जानकारी राखिदिनु हुनको लागि र हामीलाई जुन यो जानकारी गराइदिनु हुनको लागि चाहिँ हामीले गेस्ट स्पिकरको रूपमा CPA कुमार भण्डारीजीलाई हामीले यहाँ निम्ताएका छौँ र उहाँबाट धेरै कुराहरू व्यक्तिगत मैले भनिरहनु भन्दा नि उहाँबाट धेरै कुराहरू हामीले सुन्ने नै छौँ प्रोग्राममा। हाम्रो प्रोग्रामको चाहिँ एउटा फर्मेट चाहिँ के रहेको छ भने हामीले एउटा यसपछि चाहिँ हाम्रो नासा प्रेसिडेन्ट विनय अर्यालज्यूले स्वागत गर्ने हुनेछ। यसलाई अलिक अगाडि बढाउनको लागि हाम्रो यस पब्लिक रिलेसन कमिटी नासा पब्लिक रिलेसन कमिटी को चेयर सङ्गम बानियाजीले यसलाई अगाडि बढाउनु हुनेछ र हाम्रो त्यसपछिको सेसनमा उहाँले त्यसपछि एबाउट 30 मिनटको टाइम चाहिँ गेस्ट स्पिकरले आफ्नो भनाइहरू प्रेजेन्टेसन या समथिङ उहाँले राख्नुहुनेछ यस टपिक अन्तर्गत रहेर। त्यसपछि हामी क्वेसन एन्सरको सेसन हजुरलाई लागेको जिज्ञासा आफ्नो कन्सर्न केही छ भने हाम्रो CPA कुमार भण्डारीजीसँग राख्नु हुन सक्नेछ र कार्यक्रमको अन्त्य हामी यसरी गर्नेछौँ। थ्याङ्क यू सो मच। यसो भन्दै मैले कार्यक्रमलाई अगाडि बढाउनको लागि विनय अर्यालज्यू नासा प्रेसिडेन्ट विनय अर्यालज्यूलाई स्वागत मन्तव्य राखिदिनु हुनलाई हार्दिक अनुरोध गर्दछु। थ्याङ्क यू।
थ्याङ्क यू अम्बिकाजी। यो पब्लिक रिलेसन कमिटीको चेयर र नासाको EVP अम्बिका लोहानी यहाँलाई थ्याङ्क यू सो मच भन्न चाहन्छु। यो आजको मे महिनाको यो पब्लिक रिलेसन कमिटीले आयोजना गरेको मन्थली यो टकमा हामी हरेक महिना विभिन्न विषयवस्तुमा र विभिन्न गेस्टहरूलाई ल्याएर यो चाहिँ हामी एउटा कन्भर्सेसन गर्ने गर्छौँ। यहाँ हाम्रो नासाको चाहिँ मन्थली कार्यक्रममा आजको जुन यो टपिकसँग यहाँले चयन गर्नु भएको छ एकदमै समसामयिक विषयवस्तुमा यो आजको टपिक रहेको छ र आजको जुन गेस्ट स्पिकर एकदम अमेरिकामा धेरै समयदेखि लागि पर्नु भएका र यो क्षेत्रको एउटा विख्यात CPA कुमार भण्डारीजी आज हामीसँग हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँलाई कुमार भण्डारीजी लगायत आजको यो कन्भर्सेसनमा जति पनि साथीहरू आउनु भएको छ उहाँहरू सबैलाई म नासा कार्य समितिको तर्फबाट हार्दिक स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु। र यो हामीले चाहिँ जुम भर्सनमा या भिडियो भर्सनमा यो कार्यक्रम सुरुवात गर्न लागेको छ। हाम्रो यो सेकेन्ड एपिसोड हो, त्यस कारण धेरै हाम्रै साथीहरूलाई पनि यो प्रोग्राममा इन गर्नलाई अप्ठ्यारो भइरहेको छ। हामी यतिन्जेल खालि कन्फरेन्स कलमा मात्रै गर्ने गरेका थियौँ, अलिकति इजी भएको थियो। तर हामीले यसलाई चाहिँ अलिकति यो पेन्डेमिक पिरियडमा सबैजनाले एउटा भिडियो चाहिँ भर्सन चलिरहेको हुँदा हामीले पनि त्यसको चाहिँ अभ्यास गरिरहेका छौँ र पनि हामीले यसलाई चाहिँ रेकर्डेड गरेका छौँ। र यो आज हामीसँग जतिजना हुनुहुन्छ त्योभन्दा पनि हामी धेरैजनासँग यो आजका कुराहरूलाई हामीले जान्नुपर्ने र सिक्नुपर्ने कुराहरूलाई पुर्याउनको लागि हामी फेरि यसलाई डाउनलोड गरेर भोलि चाहिँ हाम्रो विभिन्न वेबसाइटहरू मार्फत हामी यसलाई चाहिँ पब्लिस गर्नेछौँ ताकि धेरैभन्दा धेरै जो एफेक्टेड हुनुहुन्छ अरू समक्ष यो कुरा पुग्नेछ। र अहिले यो अमेरिकामा यो कोभिड-19बाट पीडित हामी सबै यसै पनि छौँ र यो बेलामा हामी सबैलाई एउटा आर्थिक रूपमा पनि मार परेको छ र अमेरिकन सरकारबाट पाउने भनेर जुन घोषणा गरिएको छ त पाउने सुविधाहरू पनि हामी धेरै नेपालीहरूले पाउन नरहेको अहिलेको अवस्थामा यसलाई कसरी सहज बनाउन सकिन्छ भनेर यसका सैद्धान्तिक ज्ञानहरू अनइम्प्लोइमेन्ट बेनिफिटदेखि लिएर एसपिएल लोनदेखि लिएर यी प्रोटेक्सन प्लानका कुराहरूलाई हामीले कसरी नेपालीहरू समक्ष धेरै नेपालीहरू बिजनेस अनर हुनुहुन्छ उहाँहरू कतिपय अझै छुटिरहनु भएको हामीलाई फिल भएको छ त्यस कारणले यो नासाको तर्फबाट हामीले यो राइट टपिक चुज गरेर र यो सही मान्छेलाई लिएर आएर यहाँले जुन अम्बिकाजी यो कार्यक्रमले आज यहाँ ल्याउनु भएको छ हार्दिक यो पब्लिक रिलेसन कमिटीलाई थ्याङ्क यू भन्न चाहन्छु र कुमार भण्डारीजीलाई यो कमिटीमा स्वागत गर्दै सम्पूर्ण साथीहरू जो हुनुहुन्छ र जसले हाम्रो यो भिडियोलाई हेर्नुहुन्छ र यसबाट आज उहाँले दिनुभएका कुराहरूबाट बढीभन्दा बढी लाभ लिएर यो आर्थिक रूपमा सबल बन्नका लागि र यो अमेरिकन सरकारले दिएको सुविधाबाट वञ्चित कोही पनि हुन नपरोस् भन्नका लागि यहाँलाई अनुरोध गर्छु र म कुमारजी लगायत सबैजनालाई स्वागत गर्दै कार्यक्रमलाई अगाडि बढाउन अनुरोध गर्छु थ्याङ्क यू सो मच अम्बिकाजी
धन्यवाद विनयजी सबै पार्टिसिपेन्ट्स नासा टिमलाई धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु It's a good opportunity for me to share some ideas, some updates that are going on. So I really appreciate the team. As they say, the devil is always in detail. So we may not be going in so much detail in all the topics I would discuss due to the timing. And every individual no specialized need question. I will try to address them to the extent possible. Anything should put bio particularly related to situations and you don't feel like sharing in the team. I'll be happy to answer those questions. My contact will be in the end of the slide, and you can find me everywhere these days: Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere. So I'll be happy to answer all those questions. So as I go. Ambikaji र विनयजीले भन्नुभयो अनुसार आजको मेन टपिक्स चाहिँ Payroll Protection Program PPP, very famous, a lot of money from federal government. We will discuss on that. There was another provision from SPA, famously called EIDL, that kind of started breaking out, but we'll discuss a little bit on that as well. We will also discuss recovery rebate, very famous. This relates to individuals, $1,200, $2,400, $500 credit, and so forth. So this is really important, and I'm sure folks have a lot of questions around this. त्यसपछि हामी अरू केही tax topic-हरु that are as a result of CARES Act, केही भएको update-हरु, we'll discuss on that. And ultimately we will talk about unemployment filing procedure. अब यो चाहिँ कस्तो छ भने हरेक स्टेटको आफ्नो process छ, and on top of that it keeps changing periodically depending on the funding and all those things. And mainly questions here procedure related हुन्छ. So we will stay very generic on this one. And I think it will be good if I share my screen with you. I have some PowerPoint slides here. Ambikaji, please indicate if my slides are visible. Great. Thank you. So first topic, as I said, we're going to dive a little deeper into Paycheck Protection Program, PPP. There are two parts. A qualification part, which we struggled in the beginning. Treasury and SPA kind of opened up the program, I think, back in April 3rd or 4th, without having enough preparation. So there was a big chaos, and people scrambled, tried to get the application into the system. And there was a big struggle, as you know, and many small businesses got their application in. You couldn't get in, but money ran out pretty quickly. And as we learned from media and everywhere, a lot of that fund went to bigger businesses, and small businesses didn't really get it. The second round, Congress funded, and as far as I know, lately, a lot of small businesses have been getting this funding, which is a good news. There are still few holdouts that are still trying to get into get the application. Initially, the banks, only the banks that have relationship with their customers were offering this service. So a lot of time they did not, if they did not have a banking relationship, they did not have a lender. अहिले पछि गएर चाहिँ अरू स्मल लेन्डरहरूले banking relationship नहुने कस्टमरहरूलाई पनि अफर गर्न थाले. So that made it a lot easier for many people. Qualifications को main thing is how much to get. This is a loan. Basically, to start out, this is really a loan, and they added a component of that would be forgiven, and that's more important. And the amount that is not forgiven will be paid back. So in that regard, this is a loan with a 1% interest. I think 2 years payback. But right now, people or small businesses are not looking this as a loan. They're really looking this as a free money, and everybody's working hard to make it free. There are a few things we'll touch upon those as to how to make that free. So, and there are two components or there are two qualifying entities in this. One would be an employer that runs a payroll would apply, and the other would be somebody who doesn't have payroll, or a business that doesn't have a payroll, or that business could be a self-employed individual, famously called contractor or 1099 recipient. So those are two ways to get this loan or funding. There are a lot of questions as to how to maximize the funding, and as a small business, usually are not just in terms of running payrolls, payroll periods, schedules, and all those things. So a lot of businesses fell through the crack as to when they started running payroll and different things. But there were a few options as to which pay period to pick that would yield them a highest loan amount. So the loan amount would be calculated based on average monthly payroll, which would be the default. The first or default would be looking at 2019 entire year's payroll expense, and you would divide that by 12 and multiply by 2.5. So that would be your monthly payroll amount. Some people could use, so that's I think I made an error here with the listing here, but other people could use previous 12 months if that would yield more. In other words, if somebody ran a higher payroll in early 2020 and they wanted to include that number for increasing the amount, they could start counting 12-month backward instead of using 2019 number. So that yields higher loan amount, and personally, I use that for many of my clients because they tend to have more payroll in that period. Some would still have some opportunity to catch up on those payrolls, so they kind of worked out. There were other business who could use, if the business was brand new in 2020, they did not have 19 payroll, so they could use January 1st through February 29. But I think first time it came as February 15, but later extended to February 29. So based on that payroll, you could calculate your average monthly cost, monthly payroll cost, which probably was a bigger if you had opportunity to run higher payroll. And for other seasonal employer, in other words, a certain season they have more employees, higher payroll, and other seasons they may have lower. They were allowed to pick the higher seasonal payroll for that calculation, which would give them higher amount. Along with that, the employer could include group health healthcare benefit if they are paying for their employees. So that would be also a part of monthly payroll calculation. They could also use payment for a retirement benefit for their employee, another for 401k match from employer, or SIP match, or profit sharing match, or things like that were included in that. In addition, state unemployment tax premium, the maximum of $258 or $260 per person or per employee per year. So that amount can also be included. So that would all be thrown in one bucket, and then you would divide, as I said before, by 12 and multiply by 2.5. So that would be your loan amount. So just to put it in numbers, let's say a company had 100,000 total salary, gross salary to their employees. And let's make it even easier. That 100,000 is included of everything that I just mentioned here. We would divide that by, let's make it 60,000. That's easier. So if we do 60,000 total payroll, we would multiply, divide by 12, which is 5 times 2.5. So that would be 12,500. So that would be the amount that we would claim. Many banks had online application portal, and you would apply online, sign a consent that says that was a primary premise of the application. And I think that was stressed heavier on the second tranche of the funding because of a lot of abuse by bigger companies in the first time go around. So the primary premises was the applicant has to testify or has to sign a consent that said, I truly believe I have an economic hardship due to COVID, and I do need, I do have a need for this funding. So that's something you sign, and I think that will come in fruition down the line to hunt down, to track down some of the abuses and frauds and things like that. Other than that, the law was not very clear. It was not very specific, very vague. So a lot of people applied different ways, and I know a few people got more than they should have gotten because bank was kind of underwriting these things, and as you know, it's kind of a flooding. So in terms of flooding, a lot of things happen outside of norm. So that happened, and a lot of small businesses got this money outside of how it was intended. So either way, you would do that, and then turn in appropriate or the documentation that the bank requested, usually related to payroll. That would really show the reports or the document that would really show how you calculated these numbers. And then bank would take that application, turn it into SBA, and SBA would approve it, and then bank would start funding. As I said before, first time, all the big companies with relationship with bank got upper-handed and got all the funding, and it dried out, and smaller businesses were just watching on the news. But the second round was more effective for small businesses, and I have heard almost everybody that I helped out or I've heard from are either in the process of getting funded or have already got the funding. So that was the story about how to get funding. And as I said, I would cover it if anything I left out. So the other side was, so this is something for a employer or a business that runs payroll. Now the other part is for somebody who does not receive a W-2, but does receive a 1099 by working somewhere else. How does that person get help? So that was the question. And so on that one, since there is no payroll, the process for applying is pretty similar, but the calculation is a little different. So there is no payroll there. So the way it would work is the self-employed person who files a Schedule C on their personal tax return is the basis for application or the calculation. So if somebody receives 100,000 on 1099 and doesn't run payroll for himself or doesn't have a business formatted and formed files Schedule C on their 1040, and that would be the basis, as I said before. So if he receives 100,000 from his vendor, and he may have another 10,000 operating expenses, so he has a net income of 90,000, and that would be the basis for this calculation. So 90,000 divided by 12, multiplied by 2.5. So that's the amount he would apply for. And I think I missed to mention this before. In that payroll calculation, if any person receive more than 100,000 annual salary, that the calculation will be limited based on 100,000 of his salary. So if somebody gets 150,000 salary, the calculation would only be based on 100,000, which would I think I missed to mention that before. So that was the way to calculate for self-employed individual. And then they would go to their bank. I think initially I heard from many people, they said, yes, I'm a self-employed. I receive 1099 and I file Schedule C on my 1040 on my personal tax return. And I contacted a few banks. Since I don't have a business checking account, nobody's accepting my application. So that had been a challenge in the beginning, but later on, as I said, there are a few other SBA approved lenders. They started accepting applications. So that's the route. And if somebody still has issue, please let me know. I have few lender relationship, and I may put you in that direction and help you out. So those are two ways to get funding. Now, once you get the funding, there is another part which is more important, and which is forgiveness part. After you receive the funding, you have 8 weeks, roughly 2 months, to spend that money in a qualified expenses. To the extent you spend that money in those expenses, that amount will be forgiven. The rest, you have to pay it back. You could pay back immediately, or I think you have 1 year or 2 years to pay back with the 1% of interest. And as much as you can make it forgivable, why not? So try to make it forgivable. And the key is how you document things and how you spend the funding. If you are, let's say, just for a safe harbor's sake, if you receive the funding and you did not reduce your workforce from the, let's say, 19 level or prior to pandemic level, and you also do not reduce the wage amount significantly, and if you have a 1 or 2 of a rental payment, probably all of your funding will be absorbed by that, and you have no worries about having to pay back. So all of it would be forgiven because the statute or the provision says 75% of the money you received has to be spent on payroll, and 25% is given for rent, a mortgage, utilities. Initially, they didn't mention interest, but now they're mentioning interest. But I'm thinking that interest has to be related to business. We're not talking about interest outside of that business. So as long as you do that, I think you can be forgiven all of it. Banks will not, hopefully at this time, as far as we know, will not request for any of this documentation when you apply for forgiveness. And I forgot to mention, I think forgiveness is not automatic. You have to apply. And I think banks will come up with the application process for that as well, and shortly. So they will not ask for documentation. They may simply ask for calculation, but nothing is warranted. Down the line, they may ask for documentation. You may be audited. In that time, you'll have to provide. So be very, very careful about documenting things. I know small business kind of ignore these things and just worry about filing tax and having these numbers put together in the end. but this one is really, really important to have exact documentation for all those payments, such as receipts, check images, invoices, the rental agreements that was entered before February 15th, and so forth. The other part, I think I already mentioned, try to maintain the head count and also the level of wage so that you don't have to worry so much about calculating amount. To the extent you have concern about a reduced workforce or reduced salary wage level, then you will have to create Excel and kind of plug these numbers and plan it accordingly. Because if you pass 8 weeks, those payments will not be counted towards forgiveness, so you'll have to pay it back. Initially, the news was usually if somebody lends you money, and then obviously that's not taxable income in general tax scheme, but somehow if they say, oh, I give you that loan, or somehow it's declared that you're not going to pay that loan back, typically you would have to claim that as a taxable income, which is also called cancellation of debt income, CODI. And this is also cancellation of debt income by statute, not by force. So in that case, it could be a taxable income, generally speaking, but the provision clearly said it's not going to be a taxable income. But then they did not really mention the other side, and people felt like this is really sweet tax deal. But the second round funding and Treasury guidance provided said to the extent you pay out payroll and other expenses from this money, from this funding, those amounts will not be deducted from your tax. That means it's kind of a wash. Generally, in the world of tax, for any time for you to make something deductible, you have to pay from your fund. That's the only time it will be deductible. And same logic here, since this money is a free fall for you, which is what you use to pay out, that's not going to be tax deductible. So if you're looking for tax planning or from that standpoint, make sure you don't factor this as a deduction, because this will not be deducted from the tax. So those are some few things about forgiveness. I'm sure I missed so many items here. Again, there is a lot of detail here. I'd be happy to discuss maybe later on in the Q&A section, or if you have a certain specific question, we can discuss offline as well. So along with PPP, actually this is even before PPP. It came together along with PPP, but the application was somewhat easier. But a lot of people jumped and applied for it. This is an economic injury disaster loan. And they added a component within it called loan advance, famously known as EIDL. So this is a loan funded directly by SBA. The PPP we discussed before was funded through a bank, but it still would have to be approved by SBA. This is directly from SBA. You would go to SBA's website and you'd apply there. As I said before, people applied for it. Also, this is for business, right? I forget to mention that. So what happened is initially they didn't really mention anything. They said this is up to $2 million loan, very favorable interest rate, which I think they said 3.75%, 30 years amortizable, and people really liked it, so they applied. And in a few days, I think they say, I know we understand you're really hurting, so we want to give 10,000 very quickly. And there was a box you would check to say, I want this 10,000 as a grant, and people checked it and then applied for it. And then later on, SBA came up with a now new guidance to say, I didn't even hear the guidance. All of a sudden, businesses' bank accounts start getting funded by this amount, but it was not all 10,000. It was based on number of employees they mentioned. So if somebody mentioned I have 5 employees, they got 5,000 in their account. If they mention 1 employee, they only got 1,000. So the excitement kind of faded away. But either way, it was free money in a way. So that was the funding. Now we know this is also tied to the employee or payroll in some ways. The thinking here is if you got this money, and then also got a PPP, when you calculate your forgiveness, I would think you would have to reduce this amount from your forgiveness because the funding is given for the same purpose. I don't believe they will allow you to double dip on it. So you may have to pay this amount back, or at least factor this in calculating your forgiveness amount. As I said, originally they said up to $2 million. Now, a few days ago, guidance is out that says, we can't do $2 million. We don't have money, I guess, with the logic. Now they're saying the loan is up to $1.5 million. So if you already applied for SBA loan, got this grant, great. Now, if you want to pursue further and actually get the actual loan amount, not the grant, but the loan amount, it's no longer up to $2 million, but it's up to $150,000. You can pursue that. You can turn in any documentation information that SBA requires. I think they started sending login links, so you can pursue that. But this one, it will not be forgiven. This one will be a loan you will have to pay back. I don't think there is a personal guarantee or any collateral that's needed. But it's still, it needs to be paid back. I think it's pretty favorable loan. But if you really don't have a great plan on using this fund in your business or making more money out of it, just be careful because you'll have to be paid. Otherwise, this is pretty good money if you're looking for a loan. So that's about EIDL loan. Beyond this, I haven't really spent any time understanding further in terms of how it works or what it is. But when there is that kind of need, we can dive into that as well. Don't know what I did with the slide here. Pardon me. There we go. Okay, so this is the recovery rebate, also known as a stimulus payment. And this is an exciting one. So this is $1,200 per adult person. And if they're filing married file joint, that'll be $2,400. And if they have a child under 17 or 16, a dependent child, per child, there is 500 credits. So a family of 4, 2 qualified child would have received 24 plus 8, whatever that number is, $3,200. IRS or Treasury said if they have bank information based on 2018 or 19 individual tax return, they would fund directly to their bank. If not, then they allowed folks to go to IRS website. I wanted to be aware of time as well. Go to IRS website and update information, and they said funding will be sent that way as well. I don't know how much that happened. I heard many people didn't receive it. I still know a lot of people haven't received it. Now we start seeing paper checks coming to the mail. Still not a lot of people received it. Basically the amount will be received if they're 18 or 19 tax return filed, and if it is an individual one person single file and income adjusted gross income, which is earnings and earned income and some other business income and things like that, added all those together. If it is 75,000 or less, they should get all 1,200 for single, and for married, if it is 150,000 or less, they should get all 2,400 plus the children's credit. But many people didn't receive it. But in the event their adjusted gross income is higher than these amounts, the 112,000 is for head of household. In the event their income is more than these amounts, it would start phasing it out. So for married file joint, if income is more than 200,000, adjusted gross income is more than 200,000, they wouldn't get this check for 18 and 19. Before going further, I want to mention this, and this is not very clear to most people, and hence comes the panic. For somebody who really have a financial need for grocery or for anything, understandable. But for others, even though they don't see this money coming and others receive, there's no need to panic. The reason is, this is a credit for tax year 2020. This is a credit for tax year 2020, which will be done in 21. So when we do tax return for 2020 in 2021, we would claim this credit. And if somebody didn't receive based on 18 and 19 tax return, we still have an opportunity to claim that credit. So money is not lost. We'll still claim credit, given your income doesn't exceed these amounts. When they exceed, you still get some a portion of credit, but not all of it. But to the extent your income stays below these in 2020, you will still get that credit. So no need to panic. So that's about recovery rebates. I misspelled here as well. But moving on. Other updates under CARES Act. There are several, but I think these are the only relevant items for the group that we have here. Again, there are many other ones. If anybody is interested to know or have questions, I'll be happy to share some of those. So these are more relevant. One is, as we know, we make a charitable deduction, we make charitable contribution, and if we don't use itemized deduction, Schedule A, and that doesn't really benefit, historically speaking. But now, if we feel charitable and our itemized deduction doesn't add up to more than standard, which is 24,000, this is still useful. So if you donated up to $300 to your favorite charity and still use standard deduction of 24,000, you can deduct this $300, which is a good deal. So if you feel charitable, please donate. You can take that $300, regardless of how you file your tax. The other thing is, considering the economic hardship that many people will suffer because of the pandemic, now you can distribute or you can pull up to 100,000 from your retirement account. Before this, if you take our money before you hit 59 and a half year, you would suffer a 10% penalty, and you would report all that income as your taxable income in that year. And that would also hurt you if you're making higher income in current years. But with this pandemic, they made it where you don't have to pay that 10% penalty. And then instead of reporting that income in the same year, you will split it into 3 different years and report it, which would put you in somewhat lower tax bracket, which is a better deal. And if you decide to pay back and not pay income tax on it, you can pay back within 3 years. It's a sweet deal, but you have to have a qualified hardship, which is either you have to have a COVID or your family has to have it. There are some loose scenario where you can qualify it, but my suggestion, to the extent possible, do not pull this money. If you really need it, it's available, but if you don't really have to pull it, don't pull it. The second one is, if you have a small business and you suffer net operating loss, perhaps you will suffer net operating loss in 2020 or 2021, and you may have suffered that in 19 as well. With the tax reform of 17, the Trump tax reform, the carryback was removed. Before reform, it was removed. Now it is placed back, and it is placed back retroactively. That means you can go back in the prior years and amend your tax return and get this back. So what I'm saying here, what this means is, if you suffer a loss, operating loss from your small business, you run your 2020 business, let's say a restaurant, end up losing 100,000 in 2020, but then in 2019 or even 2018, they had 100,000 taxable income, and hence they have paid tax on that 100,000. Now, what they can do is they can take this 2020 loss back into that year and wipe out all the income, and now IRS will owe you a refund for that year. So that's another way you can get a refund back. So if you have that kind of scenario, please check with your accountant, CPA, and see if there is a possibility for amending your tax return and getting that money back. This is pretty important. Next one was, if you started a business and under your lease agreement, you're allowed to make some improvements. Typically, that improvement is depreciated over 39 years, a very unfavorable tax treatment. But the tax law before Trump's law change, it would be made a 15 years depreciable asset. And I know this is kind of a boring tax talk, but it could be important for a small business that started. So it could be made 15 years, and then if it was 15 years, it would qualify for bonus depreciation. What that means is, if I started a restaurant and paid $60,000 to improve it inside the restaurant to make it to my liking or to my need, typically you would only deduct that 60,000 over 39 years, which would give you very small deduction every year. But if you qualify, you would deduct all 60,000 in the same year. Pretty sweet deal. So that's what I'm talking about here, really. But the Trump tax law kind of had a glitch in the lawmaking, so they forgot to make this 15 years. So those kind of improvement didn't qualify for bonus depreciation, so it got stuck. And I have so many clients of that situation. They were planning on taking that deduction and made an investment. Later on, that didn't happen, and they ended up paying tax. Now, with the CARES Act, they fixed that glitch, and they say it is qualified 15 years. Now we're working on amending all those tax returns to take a higher deduction and hence reduce the taxable income and get the tax back from the government. So this could be a scenario on your tax return. If you have a small business, check with your CPA accountant to see if there were any qualified improvement that got unfavorable treatment in 2019. The other point is tax filing deadline. As we know, the small businesses flow through tax was due March 15, and they were allowed to extend it. Many people extend usually, and some file. That was not affected by the pandemic, but right before 4/15 deadline, which is deadline for individuals and big corporations, without doing anything, Treasury simply said, we just moved that goalpost from 4/15 to 7/15. So that's what we're working on right now. No telling if they will allow further extension from 7/15, but at the moment, that's the deadline for most tax returns. With that, what came is IRA contribution. And just to explain a little bit about IRA, if your employer doesn't provide you option for contributing on 401k, or they don't even have it, then you may qualify on your own as an individual to contribute up to, depending on the age, 6,000 if you're under 50, and another 1,000 if you're over 50. You were allowed to contribute to IRA account, which would be deducted from your tax. The deadline would have been 4/15. Now that also moved to 7/15. As I do tax return for individuals, I usually do this analysis every time, and I present to the taxpayer, and more people have been contributing to IRA contribution. A lot of time people don't take time to understand what it is, But if you really look deep into it, this is a pretty sweet deal, because if you have a somewhat higher taxable income and your tax bracket is, let's say, 25%, and your state also may have another 5%, 30%, and you end up contributing 6,000-7,000 into your IRA account, then you save about 35% on that, which is arguably a first-year return on your investment. So that's how I kind of like to look at it. And then how you grow your money from that contribution is a secondary issue, which is dealt separately. But nonetheless, you have up to July 15 to make that contribution. And if you also have a high deductible health insurance, you're allowed to have a HSA account contributions up to 7,000 contribution per family, which is also tax deductible. You have until 7/15 to make that contribution. So that's a little bit about tax update. Now state and federal unemployment benefits. So there are two parts here as well. One is if employer felt or had a situation where they couldn't operate business, they had to shut down door, or they don't have an income coming, and they may not be able to pay their employee, and perhaps they can still engage them some level, and they may have to furlough or whatever the situation could be. And this is pretty tricky in terms of the qualification. So you have to look a little closer in terms of how state is saying, or what kind of requirements staff have placed. But to the extent you qualify, employer can apply for employees, and then employees also can apply themselves, where they are separated from the employer, or they have COVID-related issues, not just they felt like not going to work, but probably some state will allow that. I'm not going to comment on it because it's a pretty delicate issue at the moment. But if employer applies for employees, this is somewhat easier, more straightforward. So speaking of Georgia, historically, Georgia pays up to $365 per employee per week, sweet deal. And then with the COVID, federal government also provided another $600 per employee per paycheck, sweet deal. So that's the maximum you can get for your employees. But now what you have to be careful is if you already got PPP funded and now you started using that money to pay the payroll, or you hire back your separated employee and start paying that payroll, you cannot file this unemployment. So you cannot double dip. So that's another thing you have to be careful if you have a PPP application. That's all I'm going to share about unemployment. Again, as I said, this is very specific to states and employer. So if there are more questions, I'll be happy to answer. With that, I think my presentation part ends, and I'll be happy to take any question. And I think I exceeded the time allotted for me. But I think this is a weekend, this is Sunday, so hopefully I didn't hurt anybody badly.
त्यस्तो केही छैन कुमारजी, थ्याङ्क यू सो मच कुमारजी। यो अबको सेसन प्लिज हाम्रो सङ्गमजी यसलाई अगाडि बढाउन म अनुरोध गर्छु सङ्गमजीलाई, प्लिज।
थ्याङ्क यू अम्बिकाजी। अहिले हामी चाहिँ खास गरी हेल्थ रिलेटेड हामी क्राइसिस बिहोरिरहेका छौँ। यो सँगै अब आर्थिक क्राइसिस अथवा इकोनोमिक क्राइसिस हामीसँग अगाडि आउँदैछ। यसको लागि अहिले हामीले जे सुविधा पायौँ त्यसबारे जानकारी दिनुभएकोमा कुमार भण्डारीजीलाई म हार्दिक धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु। उहाँ एकाउन्ट CPA हुनुहुन्छ, जो MTax का म्यानेजिङ डाइरेक्टर हुनुहुन्छ। हामी उहाँलाई हृदयदेखि नै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु। र केही प्रश्नहरू भए हामी प्रश्नहरू लिन्छौँ। अब कसैको केही प्रश्न छ भने प्रश्न लिउँ प्लिज।
हजुर सङ्गमजी, मेरो त धेरै नै छ प्रश्न, समय चाहिँ अलिक कमै होला होइन। कोही साथी सुरु गरौँ,
राखौँ हजुर।
एकछिन है त। मेरो पहिलो प्रश्न कुमारजीलाई। कुमारजी, थ्याङ्क यू सो मच। सो इन डिटेल, सायदै प्रश्नै सोध्नु नपर्ने जसरी इन डिटेल चाहिने जति कुराहरू सबै छोइदिनु भएको छ, इन डिटेलमै छ है। एउटा दुईटा मैले आफ्नो भित्रमा देखेको क्वेसनमा एउटा यो स्टिमुलस यो प्याकेजको कुरा गर्दाखेरि यो मैले चिल्ड्रेन उसको क्रेडिटको पनि कुरा बुझेँ, यहाँले बताउनु भयो। अनि पर फ्यामिलीको अथवा इन्डिभिजुअलको उनीहरूको इन्कम ब्राकेट अनुसार कति पाउने भन्ने पनि कुरा बुझेँ। एउटा चाहिँ यो कलेज स्टुडेन्ट जान्छनेहरूको जुन चाहिँ निदर अन्डर 16 अर लोवर अर निदर दे आर सेल्फ अर्नर पनि होइन हो, त्यस्तोको हकमा चाहिँ यो मैले ठ्याक्क कुरा नबुझेको हुन त। फाइलिङ गर्दाखेरि इनकेस यदि प्यारेन्ट्सले इफ दोज स्टुडेन्ट्स वर सपोर्टेड मोर देन 50% हो भनेदेखि उनीहरूले नपाउने
and also disabled individual. So what ended up happening is disabled and college age, which is above 17 years and under 24, 26 somewhere, they were usually dependent on 1040 filers, right? Parents or children or son or whoever. So usually they are dependent and they get a dependent credit and all that. But what happened is this provision didn't address them. So they left out disabled people from this provision. How terrible is it? I don't know if they thought through this in legislation making, or it just fell through the crack. And same thing with college kids. They of course need money, right? They're the one needing money the most. And they also didn't get it. So to your point, yes, they fell through the crack. If they're over 17, and they're dependent on other individuals' tax return, they fell through the crack, they don't get it. Now, as I said before, this is really a credit for 2020, and all these checks are flying as an advance, right? So when you file 2020, if you have an option to be strategic and make them not your dependent, however that is possible, as you said, if they don't support, if they provide more than half of their own support, then possibly you can make them not dependent on yours. In that case, they will file their own tax return with their small income, and they get that $1,200. So that would be one strategy works for many people, because you can always have that argument. I don't know, people sit down and pen it or calculate if they really provide half of their support themselves or not. To the extent you can move the needle a little bit here and there, they may file their own tax return and get that credit. That will work the best.
Thank you.
अर्को केही प्रश्न छ?
कुमारजी धेरै धन्यवाद एउटा टाइमली मोर इन्फर्मेटिभ टकको लागि। मसँग कपाल अफ क्वेसनहरु छन् यहाँ। एउटा फर्स्ट पार्ट सुरु गरौँ। फर्स्ट क्वेसन चाहिँ मेरो यो अहिले विशेष त ग्रीन कार्ड होल्डरहरुको लागि नयाँ पब्लिक चार्ज बिलहरु आइरहेको छन्। धेरै साथीहरुको कन्सर्न के छ भने अनइम्प्लोयमेन्ट फाइल गर्दा भोलि पब्लिक चार्ज लाग्छ कि लाग्दैन भन्ने छ एउटा कुरा चाहिँ है। अब मेरो दोस्रो प्रश्न के छ भने अहिले यो धेरै साथीहरुको फ्यामिलीमा पनि भइरहेछ, स्कुलहरु क्लोज छन्, कोभिडकै कारणले अब बच्चाहरुको केयर गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ फ्यामिलीहरुमा, आफै रिजाइन गरेर पनि घर बस्न पर्ने स्थिति छ अहिले कतिहरु फ्यामिली। त्यस्तो हुँदा त्यो मान्छे चाहिँ अनइम्प्लोयमेन्ट क्लेम गर्न एलिजिबल हुन्छ कि हुँदैन?
Both great questions.
थर्ड क्वेसन के छ भने सायद H1 मा अथवा OPD मा बस्नेहरु स्टुडेन्टले H1 को त सायद पे नै गर्नुपर्छ होला, करेक्ट गर्नु मलाई, उनीहरुले फायर गर्न पाउँदैन होला सायद। तर OPD मा बस्नेहरुले चाहिँ के गर्ने? उनीहरुले यदि 2-3 मन्थको लागि उनीहरु आउट अफ वर्क भयो भने, फरलङमा बस्नुपर्ने स्थिति भयो भने उनीहरुको स्ट्याटस के हुन्छ, अथवा उनीहरुले अनइम्प्लोयमेन्ट बेनिफिट पाउँछन् कि पाउँदैनन्?
All great questions, and some are beyond my purview, my pay grade, because they are kind of a legal immigration law-related questions. But I'll try to tackle them in my video. So the first question was, can you make the first question? I'm sorry.
Public charge.
Public charge. Great question. That's right. That's clearly immigration law related question, right? Here is my 2 cents. The unemployment is not because of their own fault, not because they violate any law, not because they intended not to work, not to make money and be a public charge. It's not their intention. Having said that, and also what they claim is a benefit where unemployment premium was paid. This so happens this is a government entity, but nonetheless it is an insurance, right? It is an insurance. So happens it's just a government. So having said that, I don't believe this will be considered a public charge, unlike food stamp and other things that just has no other qualifications. On those, you would just qualify just for not having work or not having income. This one is employment related, so I don't believe it is subject to public charge. But again, I have to disclose. I'm not qualified to provide any advice on it, but my gut says should not be. But it is a immigration attorney question, and for somebody who really has this concern or relevant outcome from this, should really seek a legal help or legal counsel's help. The second question, unfortunately, I'm going to ask you to repeat this because I don't have a great memory. I think getting older now.
मेरो सेकेन्ड क्वेसन चाहिँ सेल्फ रिजाइन गरेर घरमा बस्नु पर्दाखेरि त्यो मान्छे चाहिँ क्वालिफाई हुन्छ कि हुँदैन अनइम्प्लोयमेन्टको लागि?
So this one is state to state related qualifications, and I also don't know exactly, but it has said qualified individual, and they really tied everything to COVID. And if they are having to take care of their kids that their school is canceled, initially they did qualify for that. But at this point, I don't really know. We just have to check the state's website, and I think state has been pretty clear on it because this is majority of people. Right? It's not. This issue is not really for a small population. This is for a pretty big population because almost all people are impacted with this situation. So I'm thinking states are pretty clear on this at this time. And the third question चाहिँ थियो
ओपीडीमा बस्ने स्टुडेन्टहरुको लागि के हुन्छ यो?
This part I haven't really thought about, and I just can't comment on this. I don't know what is available for them. Again, it falls to a immigration question. First of all, if they end up losing their occupation, how does that impact? In terms of claiming unemployment from financial standpoint, I think they should qualify because again, the unemployment insurance was paid on their behalf. So I do think economically or financially speaking, they should qualify. But now legally, in terms of immigration law, I don't know where they fall. I would hope there is some type of safe harbor timing or something, some type of extension available out there. But this is really a legal professional question.
हजुर, यसमा म अम्बिका पनि अलिकति जोड्न चाहे। थ्यांक यू डाक्टर विधान लामिछानेजी। हजुरले साच्चीकै अहिले यो एकदमै युनिभर्सिटीसँग सम्बन्धित जो हुनुहुन्छ विद्यार्थीहरु हुनुहुन्छ यस सम्बन्धी रिलेटेड क्वेशनहरु राख्नुभयो। साच्चीकै हामीले अस्ति यो प्रोग्राम सुरु गर्दा पनि यसलाई ट्याक्सो सँगसँगै लिगल एस्पेक्टबाट पनि कसरी यसलाई गर्ने भनेर हामीले गरेका थियौं। सायद हामी फ्युचरमा यसलाई अझै हाम्रो अब सम्बन्धित जुन संस्थासँग रिलेटेड व्यक्तिहरु लयरहरु हामी लास्ट टाइम गरेका थियौं पनि दाहालजीसँग त्यस्तै अर्को पनि गर्ने म यसमा अलिकति पहल गर्ने हजुरलाई गर्न चाहन्छु। सँगसँगै कुमारजी यसमा कस्तो भने यो अब जस्तो मेरो छोरी मैले आफ्नो आफैलाई रिलेटेड गरेर गर्न चाहे। उ चाहिँ अन्डरग्रेड पढिरहेछ युजीएमा र उसले ल्याबमा काम गरिरहेको थियो। जो चाहिँ उ चाहिँ पब्लिक हेल्थको स्टुडेन्ट भएर ल्याबमा काम गरिरहेको थियो। अनि सपोज उसको चाहिँ अब यो पेन्डेमिकले गरेर सबै क्लोज हुँदाखेरि उसको ल्याबहरू पनि सबै क्लोज भयो, त्यसले गर्दा ऊ छैन। अनइम्प्लोइमेन्टको लागि म आफैले यो गर्दा हुन्छ कि भनेर ट्राई गरेँ, तर किन समहाउ युनिभर्सिटीले चाहिँ उसलाई तिमीले अनइम्प्लोइमेन्ट फाइल गर्न मिल्छ भन्छ, तर गर्दाखेरि उसलाई डिनाई भएर आयो। अब यसमा चाहिँ के कस्तो खालको के हो, स्ट्रेट फरवर्ड त छ वेबसाइटमा, तर जति त्यहाँ गरिएको छ त्यो अनुसारको उसलाई चाहिँ डिनाई भएर आएको स्थिति छ। त्यसमा केही हामी तर्फबाट के भएको हो कि या मतलब यस्तो खालको लेटरहरू गर्न पर्ने थियो कि के थियो, त्यो चाहिँ हामीले अलिकति थाहा पाएनौँ। त्यो आफैसँग पनि हुन्छ। थ्याङ्क यू। त्यसमा
यो चाहिँ अब अलिकति मर्की सिचुएसन नै छ। इन्डिभिजुअलले आफैले फाइल गर्दाखेरि सेभरल स्टम्बलिङ पोइन्टहरू भएको चाहिँ मैले सुनेको छु होइन। मैले पनि पर्टिकुलरली वेबसाइटमा गएर त्यसरी कसैलाई पनि अप्लाई गरेको छुइनँ। Sometimes we receive a letter from Georgia Department of Labor to asking for the total compensation paid throughout the period. Sometimes if enough amount has not been paid, they may ask those questions, but nonetheless, they should at least approve some amount. So if you have an option to contact the state, perhaps you should do that. I think a couple of weeks ago, I was in one of the panelists where Commissioner Mark Butler was also on the panel, and he was mentioning, as you know, they were staffed about 1,000 people, and that is because the economy was good. People were not claiming unemployment. Unemployment was in the range of 3% or something like that, and it dipped down to now over 20%. So then they're not staffed enough to handle any of this situation. I'm thinking now is perhaps a little better. So maybe there is a number that we can reach and ask that. Before that, as you said, you might have already gone through those question Q&A. It may address. If you do not receive any notice or anything from the state, it's kind of hard to say why. But if you have any rejection note that gives kind of a reason and hard to understand, I may help dig in a little bit. But beyond that, there's no telling why they do that.
Thank you.
अरु के प्रश्नहरु छन् कसैको?
एउटा सानो क्वेशन है त कुमारजी, म फेरि कृष्ण अगेन। त्यो अघि यहाँले भन्नुभएको थियो त्यो चाहिँ जुन यदि कसैले पेरोल नबनाएको तर 1099 राखेर आम्दानी अथवा इन्कम लिएको, त्यसमा चाहिँ यहाँले के भन्नुहुन्छ? मैले त्यो राम्रोसँग क्याचअप गर्न सकिनँ। यदि मोर देन 100,000 भयो भने त्यसपछि बिस्तारै त्यो कम आउट हुने कि अथवा त्यो लाइक यतापट्टि फ्यामिलीमा फेज आउट भने जस्तै त्यहाँ त्यही हो कि एउटा निश्चित नम्बर छ? एकपल्ट क्लियर पाउनु।
I'm sure I made that a little bit confusing because my thought came about that 100,000 afterwards. So let's forget the 100,000. 100,000 when you are calculating the payroll cost, and if somebody makes more than 100,000, you don't include that number, but you limit to 100,000. So that was the point I was making with 100,000. So let's forget that 100,000 for now. Now, in terms of for self-employed individual, that 100,000 I might have brought up, that was just an example. So if somebody receives 1099 from 2-3 different places for consulting type of work they do, right? You add all those together, and let's say that adds up to 70 grand, and you have a 10 grand of related expenses. So now you have a net income of 60,000, right? From that consulting type of work. That is your Schedule C. And that becomes the basis for that individual to apply for PPP loan. So that was my intention to explain. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I got it. Okay, understand. That's the example. Okay.
कुमार चाहिँ फेरि अर्को यो अलिकति अब जस्तो भन्दाखेरि यो पिपी लोन चाहिँ बैंक थ्रु हुने कुरा आयो, अनि त्यस सँगसँगै यसलाई अब चाहिँ यो चाहिँ डिजाइन फर जुन हेल्प गर्नको लागि स्मल बिजनेसलाई भनिएको चाहिँ छ, तर त्यो रियली यो चाहिँ फ्री अमाउन्ट के मनी त जस्तो भएन नि त, होइन र? यो त फ्री मनी भन्दा पनि यो चाहिँ काइन्ड अफ लोनको कुरा आयो होइन यसलाई?
So yes, दिने बेलामा चाहिँ लोन भनेर दिएको छ because it is a loan. You're applying for a loan. That's a step one. But then on step two, to the extent you can show that you spend that money under the guidelines they provided, that amount can be forgiven. So you have to look these things from two-step standpoint. Number one, it is a loan, and then number two, if you follow what they ask for, it can be forgiven. And those are the guidelines for applying for forgiveness. And any amount you don't qualify for forgiveness will be a loan and you pay it back.
सो त्यसो भए दुईटा तरिकाको छ भन्नुभयो हैन एउटा पीपीपी को कुरा आयो अर्को एसबीए ले दिने जुन स्मल बिजनेस एडमिनिस्ट्रेसनले दिने चाहिँ फेरि त्यो इकोनोमिक इन्जुरी डिजास्टर लोन भनेको त्यो दुईटा डिफरेन्ट कुराहरु हुन् हैन त त्यसो भए
Exactly. So त्यो चाहिँ अर्को लोन भयो पीपीपी भनेको बैंकबाट अप्लाई गर्नुपर्ने बैंकले ल्यान्ड गर्ने बैंकले आफ्नै पैसा ल्यान्ड गर्ने हो बेसिकली आफ्नै पैसा बैंकले ल्यान्ड गर्ने हो but SBA is guaranteeing that money or SBA is reimbursing to the bank, hence the forgivable amount. त्यो एउटा भयो अर्को मैले मेन्सन गरेको चाहिँ not a PPP loan, you directly apply through SBA and a component of that, a small component of that was advance, which said to be 10,000 in the beginning, but later on that changed. But that is a bona fide loan. That's actually a loan outside of that grant.
Thank you.
त्यसमा कुमारजी एउटा चाहिँ हाम्रो बिजनेसम्यानलाई अलिकति हामीले जानकारी दिनु पर्यो मैले देखेको कुन चीज गरेन भने त्यो फर्गिभनेसबाट उनीहरु आउट हुन्छन् भने हामीले किन के कुरामा ध्यान दिनु पर्ला जस्तै अहिले त बिचार कुरा आयो हैन if anything they miss out that forgiveness will cut out then they need to pay भनेको त्यस्तो is there any typical point we need to inform our businessmen so that can be taken under consideration.
Very, very good point. As I said, the safe harbor for somebody who just want to close their eyes and don't want to put anything in a spreadsheet or calculator. For those folks, the safe harbor would be not to reduce the workforce and not to reduce the salary or wage level. As long as they do that, they will probably be safe, meaning they will absorb all the amount they received as a loan or forgiveness. In other words, they don't have to pay anything back. But to the extent the payroll is going down, or now they have fewer people to work for them, and now they have to start thinking about maybe doing that calculation because that amount can also be used to pay rent, right? Utilities and mortgage, but not more than 25%. So up to 25% of that loan can be used for those things. So that's kind of a second option for them. Now at that time they have to be a little more careful, and if they have an accountant, they should work with the accountant. Maybe ask for a template to say, hey, can you give me a template so that I can fill in these numbers. I only spent that money within the qualified expenses, so I don't have to pay back. That will be a question.
Good, thank you. Last question है मैले सरी मलाई टाइम बढीले लास्ट क्वेशन चाहिँ अब एउटा मान्छे जसले अनइम्प्लोयमेन्ट फाइल गरेछ उले कामै गरेन त्यो त भेरी सहज तरिकाले स्ट्रेट वे देखियो अब फर रिड्युस्ड आवर एम्प्लोइज जुनले काम गरे तर रिड्युस्ड आवरमा गरे we have heard that they are still eligible to file the unemployment. In that case, if they are approved, उनीहरुले पनि पहिला जस्तै पुरै पाउँछन् कि अथवा त्यो रिड्युस आवरको मात्रै हुन्छ कि how they will calculate on that?
As far as I know, stately pay गर्ने चाहिँ historically speaking, right? Stately pay गर्ने चाहिँ the maximum payout would be $360 or something like that instead of Georgia, right? But if they made $100 in that week, they'll cut that down to $260 now. And if they end up earning $360 in that week by doing some other work, now they don't get anything from the state. right? So yes, if they make a partial earning, they should still be available, be eligible to apply for it. But the amount is really, really low. हाम्रो नेपाली भन्छ नि जाउलो खान मात्रै पुग्ने गरी दिने. So that's the issue there. It really depends on how much money they make by doing that partial work.
अर्को यसमा कन्टिन्युएसनमा जस्तै फेडरलले दिने 600 भयो प्लस स्टेटको चाहिँ डिफरेन्ट स्टेट दे हेभ डिफरेन्ट अब हाउ मच दे विल गिभ लेट्स से दैट इज द नम्बर x so that ultimately they will get x plus 600. Let's say example, some employee they don't get even that much money per week if you see the past income source. Let's say they make only half of that.
Yeah.
In that case, still will they get 600 from federal, or whatever you are getting before, only you will get that much?
I don't exactly know the partial employment situation, right? But I have heard a lot of folks, they used to work full time, bona fide, right? And they used to make X dollar, but now with this, they're actually making more money. So they have tendency not to find a job or not to go back to work. That's the concern right now.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So a lot of people who earn very low wage are actually making a lot of money. You know, and ideally in Georgia, probably you're making $900 per week times 4.5 a month, right? That's really over $4,000, and they never saw that much money. So people have a tendency not to go back to work. So that's the kind of abuse of the system, if you will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
हजुर कसैलाई क्वेसन भएदेखि राख्नको लागि अनुरोध गर्छु. त्यसपछि हामी अब टाइमको उसमा पनि आइसकेका छौँ. प्लिज.
In case later on question pop up, obviously you can actually go to our website and you can set up a time, or there is a number you can call me. Usually weekdays kind of somewhat busy time for me, but I will still make an attempt to call you back and kind of explain your question. But the best thing is to set up a time. You have an option to set up an appointment there, and then I'll be happy to talk in detail in any topic.
Thank you. संगमजी केही छ भने राखौँ अनि नत्र कार्यक्रमलाई
हैन अब यसलाई टुङ्ग्याउनु पर्ला अम्बिकाजी. अब टुङ्ग्याउनु पर्ला, अब लामो पनि भयो हैन. सबैजनाको प्रश्नहरू कसैको बाँकी छ भने राखौँ, नभए अब यसलाई चाहिँ टुङ्ग्याउने कोसिस गरौँ.
हजुर. थ्यांक यू सो मच सबैजनालाई यो जुन कार्यक्रममा उपस्थिति भइदिनु भयो. अलमोस्ट हामी 1.5 घण्टा जतिको हामीले प्रोग्राम भइसकेको छ र आफ्नो जिज्ञासाहरू सबैजना केही छ भने अझै पनि कुमारजीले भन्नुभएको छ, केही छ भने हामी पछि पनि उहाँ मार्फत सम्पर्क गरेर यो कुराहरू राख्न सक्छौँ र अब हजुरहरूको जिज्ञासा जुन क्वेसन या कन्सर्न सम्बन्धी कुराहरू गर्न सक्छौँ. त्यसको लागि गर्दै यो कार्यक्रम चाहिँ अब लाई अन्त्यतिर आइसकेको छ. त्यसको लागि विशेष रूपमा आज जुन यो समय उपलब्ध गराएर कुमारजीले आफ्नो यहाँ हाम्रो उहाँको इम्पोर्टेन्ट समय, ट्याक्सको सिजन, विविध कुराहरूकोले व्यस्त हुँदै पनि जुन एउटा अर्गनाइजेसनमा उहाँ एउटा हजुरहरूलाई जानकारीको लागि नासाको लाइफ मेम्बर पनि हुनुहुन्छ र लामो समयदेखि नासामा आबद्ध प्रत्यक्ष अप्रत्यक्ष रूपमा समयमा कमिटीमा बसेर पनि काम गरिरहनु भएको व्यक्ति हुनुहुन्छ उहाँ. हामीले उहाँलाई आजको प्रोग्राममा पाएर धेरै नै खुसी भएको छौँ. स्पेसली पब्लिक रिलेसन कमिटी नासाको एकदमै आभार प्रकट गर्न चाहन्छौँ र उपस्थित हुने सम्पूर्ण नासा एक्जिक्युटिभ कमिटीका साथीहरू लगायत क्वेसन राखिदिनु हुने हाम्रा महासचिवज्यू डाक्टर विधान लामिछानेज्यू टाढाबाट पनि यहाँ जोडिन धेरै लामो समयसम्म जोडिन पाइयो. त्यसको लागि उहाँलाई पनि धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु र अरू सम्पूर्ण साथीहरूलाई धन्यवाद भन्दै अरू केही जिज्ञासा भएपछि पनि हामीहरूको हजुरहरूको जवाफ दिने प्रतिबद्धताका साथ र अघि सँगसँगै विधानजीलाई मैले यो भनेको थिएँ, हामी स्टुडेन्टहरूको सम्बन्धमा अलिकति स्ट्याटसको सम्बन्धमा स्टुडेन्ट लगायत अरू पनि हामी विविध स्ट्याटसमा बसेका नेपालीहरू यहाँ अमेरिकामा धेरै हुनुहुन्छ, उहाँहरूसँग पनि सम्बन्धित हुने खालको केही त्यस्तो जिज्ञासाहरूसँग सम्बन्धित हुने प्रोग्रामहरू लिएर आउने प्रतिबद्धताका साथ आजको कार्यक्रम यही अन्त भएको घोषणा गर्छु र सम्पूर्णलाई नमस्कार, धन्यवाद भन्न चाहन्छु। थ्याङ्क यू सो मच।
हजुर धन्यवाद अम्बिकाजी, थ्याङ्क यू सो मच।
ल थ्याङ्क यू अम्बिकाजी, थ्याङ्क यू।
कुमारजी थ्याङ्क यू सो मच है।
धन्यवाद सबैजनालाई।
Thank you for
Thank you.
that.
थ्याङ्क यू।
Thank you.
Thank you, Kumarji. Thank you so much.